This is the Tide Capital Millionaire Podcast. This is episode 93. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Tide Millionaire. I am the founder and the director of the Tide Capital Investment Club. We have over 300 members, also the founder of Tide Acquisitions, our real estate investment club that has a lot of rental properties. I think we have about 6 or 7, maybe 8 right now. I'm looking to do really cool things this year. I want you guys to get involved and partner with us in some form. So always reach out. Never hesitate to reach out. I love responding to DMs. I love responding to emails. I'm definitely here to be a resource to the community. So if you can participate, if you can provide deals, if you can provide funding, reach out to us. We want to talk to you and work with you. Thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American business owners and investors so that people can hear the stories of successful examples. They exist. We want people to know that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. Today, we have a special guest. Her name is Miss Courtney Richardson. She is the founder of the Ivy Investor. She's actually been on the show before, but I don't think that I gave her the intro that I'm about to give her now. Courtney is a current attorney and former stockbroker and investment advisor with 15 years experience in the financial service industry. Courtney has an engaging and unique style that breaks down the stock market, retirement, and college savings in a way that encourages everyone to run out and take action. Courtney holds a BA degree in philosophy from the University of Pittsburgh. She also holds a JD, Juris Doctorate from West Virginia University College of Law, and an LLM in taxation, and a certificate in estate planning from Temple University, Beasley School of Law. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's always interesting to listen to your own bio going, who is this person?
Right. So we brought you on the show to talk about a hot topic. I've never covered the topic on this show. You've been covering it for a while, and I think that a lot of people have an interest in it. So I wanted to talk to you about the marijuana industry, marijuana stocks, weed stocks, if you want to call them that, and you're an expert in that field. So can you kind of just give us a general overview of marijuana stocks and just like where we are right now?
Sure. So marijuana stocks and where we are right now. I think the biggest thing is that we have no idea where we are right now. There's so many things going on that most people cannot tell which way is up. So kind of as a background of what's going on is that everybody looks at Canada kind of as the gold standard because they have been, they legalized medical marijuana in 2001, and then they recently legalized recreational marijuana in October of 18. So everyone's looking at Canada like that's the gold standard. And then the United States said, okay, we're going to do something too. So then they legalized industrial hemp, which is a part of cannabis or marijuana, but it's not what we consider marijuana, like what we smoke. So that's kind of what's going on overall, is that we have some stuff that's legal, some stuff that's illegal. Canada is kind of pushing the way where it's like 3 people. And, everybody, the world is just generally watching. And that's where we are. But as we all know, there's like 33 states in the United States that have legalized some form of marijuana, whether it's medicinal. Most have done medicinal, and then others, maybe about 10 or so, I think that's where we are now, have legalized a form of recreational adult use marijuana. But again, you're looking at it like, oh, it's legal. No, it's not, because the federal government has not removed marijuana from this Controlled Substances Act of 1970. So if you move from, like, if I'm in PA and I had medicinal marijuana and I take it across the bridge in Jersey, everybody goes back and forth between the two. I've now broken a law. I've broken federal law. So again, I mean, we kind of have this understanding like, oh, it's legal in my state, but it's only legal in your state. And anytime the federal government can come in and shut down your state's operations and also prosecute you for possession. So,
right. Why do you think, or why are you so focused on the marijuana industry? What drew you to that industry and that sector?
Well, the thing that started me even looking at is I had a lot of people in my audience going, Courtney, what's going on with marijuana. I'm really, really interested, but I'm scared. I'm afraid. I'm interested, but I don't have enough information. It was kind of like, hey, can you look into this and get back to us on what you think? And I was like, and this is like maybe a year ago, year and a half ago. And I'm like, okay, I guess I can, dig into it. And as an attorney, I'm always looking at the legal side. Like, that's what I run with. I run with the legal side, and then I kind of fold in my financial experience. So when I started looking at marijuana, I was like, oh, okay, so y'all been having problems with marijuana since the turn of the 20th century in the United States. Okay. And we just I started kind of pulling back the layers over the last 100 years or so about marijuana and where it was, and then kind of looking to see marijuana where it's going. And I was like, okay, I see that everybody's starting to change their idea of marijuana and how it works. And what that means is that there's going to be an investment opportunity that is here and that will be coming up over the next, maybe I would say 5 years. And because of that, I really think that it's important for people to be what we consider to be early adopters, but be cautious early adopters. And that means that we have to be the educated investor that you need to be in this type of market.
Right. Do you think that the popularity of marijuana stocks has fallen off, or do you think that it's still there?
I think it's definitely still there. I think more still there because a lot of people, like, I was about. So I think the popular. So, or I missed, or I should probably say, he'll say like he missed the boat on that. So I think we're kind of starting to get there. So I think we're kind of getting like a marijuana type bubble. So I think we still have the interest. You have like kind of over like this exuberance about it. It's still there. I mean, everybody's still interested. It's just kind of like it's like the net is starting to get a lot bigger.
Right. It's funny because I'm in an MBA program right now and I'm taking this tech class. And so in the tech class, the professor introduced this thing called the hype cycle. And the hype cycle is this thing where new technology gets introduced and the hype and the expectation for it goes so high. And then as time goes by, it goes down into what's called the trough of disillusionment, where it goes really, really low. And they're like, oh, there's nothing to this stuff. Kind of like where Bitcoin is right now. Mm-hmm. And then what happens is we kind of hit this plateau. I forget what it's called. Basically, it's like the plateau of just understanding and like reality. And so I feel like medical marijuana and weed stocks have kind of hit that hype cycle where they were really, really high. All people were talking about was weed stock. And now it's not as high as it used to be. It might not be in the trough of disillusionment, but it's not. It's kind of just funny seeing that whole thing happen. Are you familiar with the hype cycle?
I'm not, but I can see it playing out. Right. So I'm like, right. I'm listening to it, I'm like, yes, especially when you look at what's going on with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. Right. But also here, I think, we hit a high around when marijuana became legal in Canada. There was a high there. Mm-hmm. And then it did like the slide in December. Like we've had like the December of 2018, they said was the worst December that we've had since 1931, which was in the middle of the Great Depression. Mm-hmm. So we possibly could be in the trough of disillusionment or kind of on our way there. So I think that's really interesting that you make that comparison, because we're definitely there. But I also feel like a lot of people have that hype is still there because the companies in Canada has, and I was being facetious when I said 3 people, but in comparison to how many people, in comparison of markets, just even looking at the Canadian market in terms of its potential users, and then looking at the potential of the United States and its potential users, it's like a 10 times, 100 times. And I would say on a conservative side, a 10 times difference. On the more liberal side, 100 times difference in terms of the availability of people who are going to use the product or products. So, and when you look at the Canadian companies and you look at their financials don't justify their valuation in the public market.
Right, because Exactly, because there's a lot of hype and speculation and exuberance there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's unfortunately what happens, and that's what kind of scared me about marijuana stocks. Is just it looks really .com era ish to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree. I just said that yesterday. I said, we can look at pets.com and we can look at amazon.com. One of the two are not here anymore, but
right.
which is pets.com. But also, did we look at Amazon in 1999? They were selling books. Did we ever envision that they would grow to where they are now? And the
Not at
answer
all.
is no.
Right. And
So
then
it's kind go ahead.
that's I think that's one of the points you're making is you're telling people to be cautious investors, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like we have this era where some of these companies are going to succeed. Some of them we're going to forget they even existed. So how do you determine which one? What's your strategy for determining which one is going to have the most longevity?
So I look at financials. I look at the financials of the company. I also look at who's investing in the company, if anyone. And I'll explain that in a second. And then I also kind of just read. I tell people that when I talk to my students, I'm like, a nosy investor is a good investor. I need to know everything possible about your company, especially in this industry, before I decide to invest. Like, I need to know what's going on with it. I need to know, what, because in these spaces, you have a lot of hype. And then you kind of, when you dig in their financials, you're like, you've been losing money forever.
Right.
Like, are you going to turn this around? Can you turn this around? A lot of these cannabis companies are burning through cash. Like, they're just
Right.
clearly burning through cash. And some of it is a function of necessity in terms of building an infrastructure. So the biggest cannabis company in the world is Canopy Growth Company.
Mm-hmm.
They have a huge investment from Constellation Brands, which is what we know about Corona. They have a couple of vodkas. I forgot which vodka they have. But they're a huge alcohol company.
Mm-hmm.
So they've invested, and they did 2 waves of investments. They did one, I believe, in I think it was 2017. They did a big investment, and then they basically tripled their investment in 2018. So they own, I believe, 33%, 35%, somewhere around there of the company. And they started out with a minority stake, which was 9.9% of what they were doing a couple of years ago. So just to see, like, okay, so you guys have basically doubled your or tripled your investment in this company. So you see something there. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I'm with you. But then I look at Canopy's numbers and I'm like, Canopy, you guys don't have the revenue to really support this valuation. I think they have around now, and I haven't looked at it in the last couple of days, but I think they were somewhere around like a 16 billion market cap. How? No. We're not there yet. So I think, so that kind of just shows me, like, yes, we have a great company investing in you. And I think Constellation Brands is well over $200 a share. So we have a great company investing in you, or there may be maybe high hundreds, but great company investing. They have a lot of cash. They're kind of putting money in you. Okay, cool. And then Canopy, we look at Canopy saying, okay, what else are you doing? Oh, now you're investing in the United States. Okay. So that's kind of the stuff that I'm looking at to see if this company is a viable company. And sometimes the elephant is just viable because it's the elephant. Like I said, Canopy is the largest company in the world as it stands right now. And I hope it's kind of like, when you see a kid and you get them shoes, I don't know, we've got shoes for, like, my nieces and nephews, and we'll say, okay, these don't quite fit your, like, probably not shoes, but like pants. Like, these don't quite fit. We're going to kind of like tighten the waist, and we're going to roll up the bottoms, and you'll grow into them. And that's kind of where I'm hoping about Canopy. They're going to grow into their market cap. They're going to grow into their valuation. That's what I'm hoping for them. So
that's well, the first, and there's so much I want to talk about, but I think that's kind of like what happens when you buy something like that. It's kind of like Tesla. Tesla was ahead of itself for so long, and now it's starting to kind of grow into the valuation. I can't think of another. Under Armour was another company, but they kind of didn't grow into their valuation, and unfortunately, they kind of, I think, they started creating too many different products, and they got away from their niche.
Yep.
And so that's why you've seen their stock kind of fall. And so I think that's just an example of how it can go both ways. Like, you can either succeed or you can fail. And I think a lot of that has to do with the market that you're in. One of the things that is kind of scary about marijuana is that it seems as though there is a lot of competition. It seems as though the market is saturated. Like everybody's opening a dispensary, everybody's doing this, everybody's doing that. And in California, I don't smoke weed, but it's kind of driven the prices down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you, like back when marijuana was illegal and you wanted to buy like a gram, or you wanted to buy like whatever people, I don't know how that stuff works. I just know that the money that I used to hear they were spending on weed is significantly less if you go to a dispensary. So how does that affect the overall market if there's so much competition, if there's so much, if people can grow their own plants if they want? Like you can actually grow your own plants. You don't have to buy it from whomever. How does that business look? What does that happen? I mean, how does it impact investors? How does it impact consumers? What's there?
So I think it kind of goes back to making a comparison of the .com bubble, because remember everything, it was like grass.com, people.com, it was everything.com. And, we had this, there was a separation between basically the real and the fake. And I think you're going to have that same thing here, is that yes, anybody, and I kind of want to back up. Now, California, from everything, and to your point, I don't actually smoke weed, but I would do edibles and vapes. So I will say that, and I'll talk about why that makes a difference to most people. Mm-hmm. But from what I was reading, California has heavily taxed marijuana, and a lot of people are complaining. Even those who have, especially the ones who have the dispensaries, they're saying, I'm being taxed so much. It's just easier for my people who would want to be legal or engage in a legal kind of transaction for them to go back to the black market because of the taxes. Mm-hmm. And I think the biggest complaint I've seen, was out of the Oakland area, that they were complaining about the taxes. And I don't know kind of what the fix is for that. And then also just generally getting into the dispensary. In Pennsylvania, it's super expensive to get in. Mm-hmm. It's really, there's like an escrow account, I think, that has to be funded with somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000 that you can't touch. It's not that you have to show that you have it. Not only do you have to show that you have it, but it's not accessible to you and your business. It just has to sit there. And I think that kind of keeps us, people of color, Black people, out of the market or out of those types of businesses, because you're saying, okay, you have to have this huge capital investment that you can't do anything with. And you're like, really? I just have to sit it there. And I don't even think they may get like a minuscule amount of interest, but really, when I could be doing something more productive with this set of money. Okay, fine. So the question is, who has that type of money to sit around and not be productive? So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that there's a lot of people who are excluded from the industry because of their felonies that they got with the illegal drug. I mean, and they're non-violent felonies. They're possession felonies. So now you have a possession felony from 10 years ago, but that excludes you from even getting into the industry on the business side. And you're just like, for real? So there's a lot of dispensaries. So I guess I say all that to say there are a significant amount of dispensaries. Pennsylvania has like licenses. Their licenses are not, they're limited. And I think we're in like maybe the third phase. But so the licenses are limited. The capital investment is astronomical. And then on top of that, a lot of Black men, a lot of Black women are excluded from even getting in the business because of these stupid behind possession charges that they got years ago. But now all of a sudden, the same amount of possession that they would have had now, if they had it back, if they had it now and they were selling it legally, that's fine. But like 10 years ago, it wasn't trendy. So now all of a sudden, now they're stuck with this for the rest of their lives. Like, really? And that's the kind of stuff that makes me angry.
I think that there are African American people who are starting their dispensaries. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that, and they've found a way to do it. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's going to require strategic partnerships. I always tell people that there's nothing that you can't do with a team. Mm-hmm. Like as an individual, you might be limited, but if you get the right pieces together, there might be somebody out there who's like, I do have a $250,000 that's just able to just sit there on the books. And so
that's true.
So I don't want people to say like, I can't do it because of this, because I mean, there's so many things that we can do if we just take a strategic approach to it. But I mean, there's no doubt about it. It is difficult, but one thing that I will say is the firm that I just left, they were looking to get into the medical marijuana industry on a large scale. But even that wasn't an individual effort. What this guy was doing is he put together a subscription agreement. He went around Newport Beach, talked to like 20, 30 different families and raised like 100,000, 200,000 from a bunch of different people. It was a community effort. And so it wasn't just like big bad millionaire man who said, I'm going to get into the weed industry. It was a group effort. And I think we can do it too, even if we only do it on a smaller level. If we get together and say, who has $1,000? Who has $10,000? Let's pull this together so we can put a dispensary right on that corner. We're going to put Ray to work and have the other dude put in security. Like there's ways. And that's kind of why like the purpose of the show is to encourage people. And I mean, this conversation I think is huge because somebody's going to take something from it. Somebody's going to say, oh, okay, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And they're going to report back in like 6 months and they're going to say they opened a dispensary. It happens all the time with this show. People are like, oh, I bought an apartment complex from listening to your show. I got my credit together. I got all this stuff together from listening to the show. So there's definitely hurdles. There's definitely barriers. But I should get one of those people on the show. I'm going to get a dispensary owner, a Black dispensary owner on the show. But you're right. I mean, it is unfair. I think you put out a post. I think it was you. And you said that America shouldn't be able to pay their bills with weed money, when an African-American person is in jail for trying to pay their bills with weed money. Was that you?
Yep, that was me. and that's true. And I think you make a really, really valid point about, so what's been going on in Pennsylvania is a lot of Pennsylvania investors have been looking to California because it's a lot easier for them to get in than it is to get in Pennsylvania and the surrounding area. So I think definitely you make a great point. Like where there's a will, there's a way. And I think I would love to see kind of like even doing a partnership with a storefront and apartment complex. Okay, the storefront is the dispensary, and then above it you have income producing units. I think that's great. I think that it should be the model all of the time. And I think one of the big things is about normalizing this, because at the end of the day, marijuana and cannabis is a medicine. And we have criminalized it in a way, but it's a medicine. I mean, we talk about CBD. So you have your CBD, which is your what we call like a therapeutic type, a therapeutic kind of medicine. And then you have THC, which is psychoactive. But THC is therapeutic also. And I think because, and when psychoactive means like you get a high, but THC has therapeutic properties just like CBD does. But because we've criminalized the idea of quote unquote being high, then all of a sudden it takes it out of the medicinal place and makes it solely a drug. I mean, to be very honest, is that marijuana and cannabis is listed. I should say that marijuana and not necessarily cannabis, but is listed as a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Substances Act. And Schedule I drug says there's no medicinal use. You can't use it. There has no good use. No. That's basically what the CSA says. But we know that not to be true. And I think that also talks about the racism that's been prevalent in the United States regarding this particular, and I want to call it a medicine for lack of a better word, because it's a medicine and drug are interchangeable. But when I say it's a medicine, people think of it differently. But we've been legislated against in Congress since 1906, when the Pure Food and Drug Act came along, and they were talking about how. And this is on the floor of Congress. They were saying, Black men are taking in cocaine, they become superhuman, and they rape our white women. Like that was on the floor of Congress. So, there's been a lot of racialization and racialized commentary regarding these drugs that have really placed us in a bad spot. And to comment on the post, it's like, okay, now all of a sudden it's cool and it's trendy, so you can pay your bills with it. But the same person who was doing this 10 years ago, they can't seem to get a break, but you guys are getting breaks all the time. Okay, got it.
Wow. I mean, it reminds me of the a lot of people will talk about how you get a harsher crime or a harsher sentence for crack, but for cocaine it's less. I mean, what's the strategy regarding that? Is that a political conversation that needs to be had, or is there a tactical conversation that can be had? What's the conversation? I mean, what's the strategy going forward, do you think?
I think it's a political conversation that's driven by influence and endorsements. Like, for example, I think a lot of people, you can really get what you want if you have the right conversations with the right people and you get the right people elected. So getting marijuana, there's a rule in Pennsylvania that's called the Clean State Slate Bill. And that was, politicians that said, we're making criminal justice reform a priority. So it's us, as African Americans with money, or just anybody. I mean, you don't even have to have money. I mean, you could put $25 into a pot, and then somebody else can, and somebody else can, and then before we know, we're at $25,000, and we're saying, hey, you as a candidate, you represent our interests, and we want to help you get elected because you're going to represent our interests there. So it's definitely, I think it starts as a monetary conversation, but I think it morphs into a political conversation, because at the end of the day, the laws are going to have to change. And how we get the laws changed is that we lobby for it.
I like that a lot. I like it because I put out this post and I said that Black business creates more jobs and wealth than voting. But I think that we have to start investing in our politicians. We have to start financially backing who we want to get into office. And I mean, if you think about it, if we say we want this person to be president, we want this person to be the governor, we want this person to be whatever, and we just say it and we don't put any money on it, then he really owes us nothing. He gets into office and he does what he wants. He serves the interest of the people who financed him and backed him. And it's unfortunate that that's the way that the system is. But knowing that that's how the system is, that just means we need to shift our strategy. And so the strategy can't just be like, I'm voting for you. It has to be like, I funded this for you. Like, and if you want this funding to keep coming, you're going to start making some things happen for us. I think that's next level that we haven't done in the past. And like you said, it's how I do everything. It doesn't have to be one person with a bunch of money. It can be a bunch of people contributing what they have, but you have to contribute what you have, because a lot of people want to keep what they have, but then it's like we beg for what we want. No, Martin Luther King said that we pay for what we want and we beg for what we need. So we got to flip that. And it's like, if you need politicians to put policies in place that are going to help your community, they're going to serve your community, they're going to reform what you want reformed, that are going to fund what you want funded. Like, you got to put your money where your mouth is. You got to put your money where your vote is.
Yep, exactly. And I think once we kind of start doing those things, we're going to see the changes that we need to be successful. Because like I said, they've been lobbying against us for over 100 years on this particular issue. So we have to kind of change the narrative of how things are going. I mean, and I think it was, and I still haven't been able to get some really good information on this, but in 1937, it's what started kind of the I guess the world against cannabis, I should say. And it started in Congress, and then it was called the Meeting Act in 1937, and significantly the use of cannabis for any reason. And so there was a growing hemp industry in the early. It was a two-pronged bill. They were trying to kill hemp, and they were also they were doing two things. Is that the Carnegies were trying to basically stop hemp, because hemp was a direct competitor or direct competition to steel. So I always from legislation. So not only benefiting and kind of who's going to benefit if this thing happens and who doesn't benefit from this thing happening. And I like looking at legislation that way, because when I was reading, I was like, the marijuana tax, like, why did we do this? Like, what was going on? And I didn't understand. And I said, well, maybe they didn't understand the difference between what we call hemp and what they call marijuana. And the difference between the two is basically the THC, the psychoactive part. Is how much THC is in there. I'm like, oh, maybe they just didn't understand, and they were just trying to say all of it's bad. No, they understood. They knew what was what. They had a two-pronged agenda that was met with congressional action. So I think if we have these multi-pronged agendas, we can get the same work done. But I think one of the biggest things we have to do is have an agenda, like what's important to us, and then move from there.
That's so true. Man, there was that Breakfast Club interview where they had Cory Booker on there, and they asked Cory Booker something about whether he felt that he needed to serve the Black agenda, and then he proceeded to go and talk about a bunch of different issues, but he didn't talk about an actual agenda. So he brought out criminal justice reform. He brought out maybe poverty. He brought out education. He brought out maybe the school to prison pipeline. But those are just issues. Those aren't actual initiatives. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is we have to have initiatives. But what I think is really interesting is a lot of times people will have a two-pronged approach. They'll have what they really want, but then they'll have the politically correct way to get the same exact result. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So it's you can't be that. You can't advertise your strategy. That directly conflicts with Sun Tzu.
Right. I would
be proud of it.
But also, I think it's really interesting, and this is kind of the change I've seen in the United States, is that people will tell you exactly what they're going to do, and everybody's against it, but then all of a sudden it passes. You're like, I'm going to, especially with immigration, they said, Donald Trump said, I'm going to be hard on immigration. We're not doing any of this. He came down really hard on it, and everybody was upset about it, and they felt it was horrible. And the next thing you know, you're doing all this anti-immigration stuff. You're like, well, wait, I thought we were all against this, y'all. I thought, so I don't know how this works anymore. And I felt to the point of the rules, it's I thought that was against the rules. I thought you didn't tell people what you were doing. And I was but now I guess you do it in plain sight and people just let you do it. I don't know. And I'm how do we fix all of these things? How do I fix it? And I don't have an answer. But I guess to kind of loop back to marijuana and what is going to change things is that there are two bills on the floor in Congress right now, one on the House of Representatives side and the other in the Senate. Basically, and they're both bills 420. So it's HR 420 and S 420. And they're both looking to legalize marijuana. And I think that's a really interesting thing. So I'm well, and then so I asked the same question, well, who's really going to benefit from this? Because it's not us. I mean, they're not saying, hey, we're going to really help African Americans get into this industry because we really care about how much money they bring home. No. So who's going to benefit from that? And that's kind of where I always look at these things. So when I look at the farm bill that passed in December of 2018, when I look at that bill, I'm well, who really benefits from that? Oh, that was a really big initiative coming from Kentucky because Kentucky was initially growing hemp back in the day. So that's kind of okay, all right. So you had, and Kentucky is a red state, so they're benefiting. So I think what happens is we look at things sometimes and we say, oh, that benefits that group of people. It doesn't benefit me. I'm no, how can I make this benefit me? How can I make this worthwhile for me and people that look like me? And that's kind of to the other side of why I kind of stayed so long, why I'm staying so long, and why I'm a marijuana and cannabis expert, is because I'm you know what? I'm going to use this tool to benefit others. I'm going to benefit people who look like me, who understand it. Because I was telling somebody the other day, I was there's a lot of people who are locked up for possession and for distribution. And I said, but they understand the plant better than I do. So how can they use that knowledge and actually make money from it? Okay, the way we have to do it is we're going to have to do it in the stock market because they can't directly get involved in the business as the way the laws are set up. But why don't we put them in a position to make money from what they know, and then years from now, playing the long game, we can lobby to get those rules changed.
Absolutely. That's how you do it. You got to be strategic.
Mm-hmm.
So are you able to just buy, because it's still illegal federally, are you able to buy stocks in a normal brokerage account like a TD Ameritrade or Robinhood? How does that work?
Yes, you can, and it kind of depends. So a lot of the Canadian companies that are big are actually available. They're dually traded. They're traded on the TSX, which is the Toronto Stock Exchange, and they're traded on either the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. So a lot of them are available. The bigger companies are available, like you would buy what we would call like Apple or Microsoft or Walmart, just like that. So I can go and buy them in Robinhood or Stockpile or my regular brokerage account, which is at Merrill Lynch. So I can do when it gets more into the interesting parts of it, when I say kind of like the next step down, I would say that, and they're kind of like the company. So we have our, let me back up. So we have our Canadian companies, big companies. They're in the New York Stock Exchange. They're traded in Toronto also. And I should kind of mention that you cannot be listed on the New York Stock Exchange, the Toronto Stock Exchange, or the NASDAQ if you are engaged in the illegal business of marijuana or cannabis production. So that means a lot of the United States companies cannot be listed there because they're currently engaged in the medical marijuana business, which is currently federally illegal. So that's kind of gives you the next step, the next thing. So on the other side is that the companies in the United States that want to be listed, because again, when you're listed, you have access to a lot more capital. They're like, okay, where can we go? So they're going to be listed in Canada on the Canadian Securities Exchange, which is kind of like a step down from the Toronto Stock Exchange, but at least gives them access to the markets. So they're going to be traded with the ending symbol F. So I believe like Charlotte's Web is CBT something WF or something like that. It's like, no, it's CBWTF or something like that. But you can look them up. So Charlotte's Web has this F on the end. A lot of these companies have Fs on the end. That means that they're a foreign stock, but you can purchase them. And most, I want to say more standardized brokerage accounts. So I can purchase that at Merrill Lynch. Now I do have to do a lot more. I have to jump through a lot more hoops. If I'm doing a big trade, I have to like give them, like, I feel like my social security number, my firstborn child. I have to do a lot of stuff to kind of basically, because that's where pump and dump does happen. I have to kind of really tell them that this trade is coming from me. So I have to get a notice in my email. I have to go in the email. I have to get the code from the email, put it into the trade. It's just like, oh my gosh. But you can do it. It's more of a standardized. You have to go to a more standardized brokerage account. Robinhood doesn't really support it. They did support some F symbols in cannabis. And then I think maybe in either September or October, they were just like, no, we can't do this because they just didn't have the capacity for it. So some of the United States companies are going to be traded on the Canadian Stock Exchange. You're going to see them with the F. I think there's a Charlotte's Web is traded that way. Acreage Holdings is traded that way. Green Thumb is traded that way. Medman is also that way. So some of the big names that we may have heard kind of in passing in the United States that are kind of doing like multi-state operations, that's where you're going to start finding them on the Canadian exchange. But again, you have liquidity problems. They're not as liquid as the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ or even Toronto for that matter. So it's kind of like, okay, you're able to get in, but at what price? And literally and figuratively.
What has been your best marijuana investment?
Kronos is my best marijuana investment. Kronos got across my radar, I want to say maybe about November 17, I want to say. Yeah, I think November 17. The thing that caught me, so let me go back. And so the bigger companies in Canada are Canopy Growth, Aurora, Kronos, Aurora, I'm missing a couple, Afria, and there's maybe Hexo is a bigger one also. So there's a kind of like maybe about 6 big companies in Canada. And out of all the companies that I saw, Kronos caught my eye because after doing research, it's run by a United States business person, which not saying that United States business people are like better than anybody else, but I saw the long play because the idea is that they were going to try to do business in the United States. And the best person who could do business in the United States is somebody who's familiar with the United States rules, regulations, practices, whatever. So I said, okay, I think you guys have a really good, because the question, even when they started pushing the agenda in Canada, is that when was the United States no longer going to be comfortable with being left out? Because Mexico is now legal too. So we're kind of like between 2 companies that the United States, in their head, which I disagree with, feel like is inferior to us. So they're like, well, how long are we going to be kind of kept out of this whole thing? So I think Kronos saw that a long time ago. So I think I got in, I think it was like $7. And I think they're about $21 a share. So Kronos was a really good move because I liked their number. Like I said, they were pretty cheap. But I really liked what they were doing and how they were moving. And then to kind of help my cause, Altria Group, which is the parent company of Philip Morris USA, they jumped in recently, and now they are a 45% owner of Kronos with the option of increasing.
Stuff like that will definitely increase the stock price.
Right. So now they have the option of getting to 55%, which will be a majority owner of the company. So again, I saw that going. I didn't know it was going to be them. So let's not say that I had the crystal ball there, but I thought they had good financials. I think they had a good market position, and I thought that they had and I always look at management, and I think that was the bigger thing. Like, I liked what they were doing, but I thought they had good management for where I saw the industry going, and that's what it was. So I was like, okay, and so I felt good.
Yeah, I feel like when you're investing in something like this, you kind of have to take a venture capitalist approach, where you might have to buy 10 companies and hope that 2 of them do really, really, really well, and be okay with maybe their 8 not performing or not living up to it, because you just don't know which one it's going to be. And usually, if those 2 do really, really, really well, it'll outweigh the losses that you take in those other 8 losers. I mean, that's an extreme strategy, but it's a strategy.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with these industries, that you have to be okay with losing. And when I mean okay with losing, it's not necessarily losing all of your money. Like, I think you should still do your research, but no amount of research can tell you what's going to happen 5 years from now. But being okay with losing, it's like, okay, because at the end of the day, if I get 10 companies and only 2 of them are successful, that's a 20%, percentage. That's a very low F. But depending if I make a good bet with those 2 companies, I'm probably going to outperform my losses of the.
Right.
That's pretty much, but again, you have to be okay with seeing those numbers and going, but knowing that, okay, one or 2 of these or 3 of these may actually work out really, really well, and being okay with the other ones that don't.
So you have a class. What's the title of that class again that teaches on marijuana investing?
Oh, 5 ways to invest in cannabis.
And so, I mean, briefly, without going too deep, I don't want you to expose your content behind the paywall, but what are some things they can learn in this class, and what are some takeaways that they'll be able to get from this class?
So the biggest thing is that I do like 5 modules, because I break everything up. I talk about the history of marijuana, kind of what's going on in the United States, what other countries in the world are doing, because everybody's pretty much looking at North America, but where is everybody else in the world looking? What else are they doing? And then I talk about 5 ways to really get into the marijuana industry, and they're not all plant touching. And so what I mean by plant touching is that actually physically touching the plant. I'm a big person that loves picks and shovels plays, because picks and shovels, work. And just to kind of clarify what a pick and shovels play is, and I talk about this a lot in the class, is that in 1849, there was a gold rush in California. Everybody ran out there because they felt that they were going to hit it rich. Not everybody who went out to California struck it rich, but those who were providing the picks and the shovels for people to actually go digging for gold or searching for gold, they made out really, really well. Like Levi's is one of those companies, because they were providing protective pants to go searching for gold, and they are a multi-billion-dollar company. And actually, Levi's is IPOing again. I don't know if you know that. So they'll be hitting the market, I think, in the next month or so. But I don't talk about that. I didn't talk about Levi's IPOing in that class. So we're talking about picks and shovels. We're talking about pooled investments, kind of like taking I don't know what's really good, but I want to kind of get exposure. So that's pretty much the way I go about it. And I also kind of walk through a couple of trades to say, hey, this is how a trade would look like. This is how it would work. And I do that just to kind of get people comfortable with actually making the purchases. And I do it in Stockpile. I do one in Robinhood, and I do one in Merrill Lynch, just to see how they look differently on the different types of platforms. So really just a really instructional, I think it's like in total, it's over a 2 hour class, but it's split up in different modules. So I think the biggest module I think is like an hour long, but you can kind of break it up. But it's everybody who's taken it and saying like, yo, I've never looked at marijuana this way before. So
that's cool. So we'll have the link to that class in the show notes. How much is the class?
$97.
Nice. That's a pretty good deal right there.
And it has an ebook. So sorry, there's an ebook too that comes along with the class. So between the class and the ebook,
I know you teach some other things too. I was on your site today, and what are some other classes and courses that you offer?
So I'm doing a live class this Thursday, end of February, talking about retirement, like 3 secrets of retirement. Because a lot of people, as much as we talk about making money and getting money, it's kind of like, well, where does that money go? How do we make this money work for us? How do we put it in a tax deferred or tax advantaged account? So I talk about retirement a lot. A lot of people are talking about it. I also do a Stocks 101 class, which I'm going to roll out in March. March is a really big month. And then in March, I'm also going to do an IPO class. So a lot of people are interested in IPOs. They kind of, they want, everybody feels like they're going to have the next Amazon, the next Facebook. But how do you go about that? How do you look at these companies and what you should be looking at? So IPOs, a dividend class too, because a lot of people are like, I want dividends. And you're like, well, you do want dividends, but you want to make sure that the dividends are coming from the right place. So just general stock investing classes.
What do you mean by the right
from the right place? You can put a company can pay dividends from debt. And I'm like, no, you're supposed to be paying dividends from profit, but the expectation of the shareholder is to actually get it as a result of a profit, and because it's kind of like the company sharing profits with you. And I'm like, oh, but you're trying to maintain your dividend because you don't have revenue coming in to support it, and instead of cutting your dividend, you're just pulling it from somewhere else. And I think that was part of GE. I think that was their strategy for a while before they actually cut the dividend. So. And then, everybody was all up in arms. But I said, but if you were paying attention, you probably would have saw that they probably started pulling the dividend from the wrong place.
That's cool. What is your favorite business book?
Favorite business book? Ooh. Oh, gosh. I don't know. You always give these questions to me that I'm like, I don't know. In terms of investing, I'm a really big intelligent investor person. I really love that strategy. But I also, I'm a Peter Lynch, I'm a closet. I think I talk about him every so often, but I'm a closet Peter Lynch fan. I love his strategy of just kind of looking at investing in what you kind of see every day, that you kind of see the evolution of. So it's just about paying attention to what you have going on in front of you. I love him on that level. In terms of business, I'm currently reading a book. Let me pull it out. It's called Likeable. And it is by Dave Kerpen, and it's Likeable social media. So it's how to delight your customers, create an irresistible brand, and be generally amazing on all social networks that matter. So I'm reading that book. It's actually very good. It's very easy to read. And then, so those are my favorites right now, because those are the ones I either use as my investment Bible or kind of something that's in my bag. What else do I have in my bag? I actually do have a couple in my bag. I also have the No BS Direct Marketing, Ultimate No Holds Barred, Kick Butt, Takes No Prisoners. This is literally all on the cover. Direct Marketing for Non-Direct Marketing Businesses by Dan S. Kennedy. So those are the two that I have right now.
Nice. Who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Kind of personally, my father. I really look up to him. I think he always, whenever I have a business problem or a business question, I go to him. He was a executive with McDonald's in the early 80s. So I saw, and he's we're, I guess, 3rd or 4th generation entrepreneurs. So he's just really my go-to person personally. In terms of who I look up to, I love Joy Reid. I think she's the best person ever. I think her perspective is always her perspective that she provides and gives is the perspective that I want to provide and give, but on the investment side, if that makes sense. So I'm a huge Joy Reid fan. Who else do I just love? There's I actually like this other one. She's Ming Lee. She's on Instagram, and I started following her maybe 5 years ago. And I just think she shows entrepreneurship through a different way. Like she just kind of took the weed business and just like ran with it. And I'm just a fan of hers and the way she runs. So those are my people.
Awesome. Wow. So I guess that brings us to the end of the interview. Where can people find out more about you and everything that you have going on?
So the best place to find more about me is my website, which is www.theivyinvestor. So that's THEIVY.com. And I hang out a lot on Instagram. I just like Instagram. I think it's my favorite platform. So the Ivy Investor on Instagram. I'm also on Facebook at the Ivy Investor. So the Ivy Investor everywhere. I'm also on Twitter, but I don't tweet a lot. I don't have that much to say. But every so often I will pop up and say something that I find profound. Everyone else may not, but I find it profound. I'll share that with my 1,000 followers. So that's pretty much where you can find me.
One thing that I think is really cool is that you drive traffic to your website. I think a lot of us can kind of become too dependent upon social media to run our business. And I think that you have to capture your community within within platforms that you own and that you control. And so I think that's why, if you have these email lists, you have to be building up your email list. You can't get so beholden to these platforms, because then YouTube changes their algorithm and everybody's income just shifts. Mm-hmm. So I mean, for people listening to this show, I think that's also another takeaway from this show is yeah, you're making money on social media. Yeah, you're making money on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, but you also need to be building your own platform. So that's kind of a challenge to people. I think that intellectual property, what you build, is just as much a wealth builder as real estate, in my opinion. Real estate is great, but you also need to be building your brand, be building your website, all that stuff up. So with that, this has been episode number 93. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Top Millionaire, founder, director, Tie Capital Investment Club. Hey, if you guys want to join either of our investment clubs, email us at membership@capitaltod.com, capitaltod.com, or you can email us at propertymanagement@capitaltod.com. Check out the website, www.capitaltod.com. Also, make sure to check out Blacker Pockets on Instagram at Blacker Pockets. Working on some really, really cool stuff with that, collaborating with some people that we met on the internet to take that platform off of Instagram and create our own website and forums and stores. It's going to be some really cool things going on with that. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for tuning in. Leave a rating, a review, preferably a 5-star review. Like, share, subscribe. Help us build this up. We're changing a lot of lives by sharing great people's stories and great people's expertise. Thank you all for tuning in. My name is Charles Oglesby, signing off.